Let's listen to Alex Jones on the Iran war situation.
Alex, how are you?
Mario, great to be with you. What a crazy time to be alive 133 days into this war.
Good to speak to you as well, man. And talking about craziness. So yesterday, a report came on CNN, out of all outlets. U.S. intelligence had detected a steady stream of reporting in recent weeks about possible Iranian plots to assassinate Trump. So it came in from Israeli intelligence of a new plot to assassinate the president. So obviously, we would dismiss that as just another report that doesn't mean much. But then Axios put out a story. Barak Ravid put out a report early this morning. He said two senior U.S. officials, according to them.
It's not that surprising. As it is, the United States is headed to a guaranteed loss, especially Trump. Maybe they're hoping something, a 9/11 type attack, taking out President Trump, might get the United States involved and actually go after Iran. But it won't work. People don't want boots on the ground in Iran, and even killing President Trump won't change that.
Israeli intelligence did not share a specific, organized, detailed plan by Iran to assassinate Trump. The reports the reports consisted of Iranian figures merely discussing the matter. So it went from an assassination attempt against Trump to Iranian officials just talking about the possibility of Trump dying. Now, Trump seems to have taken it seriously because in Ankara on the NATO summit, not sure if you heard his comments, where he said, I'm on a list by Iran. I'm on top of that list.
He said, I may not be here too long because Iran wants to kill me.
Exactly. And there's a report by the New York Post that came out a couple of hours ago where Trump stated that he has left instructions for a devastating response against Iran should they succeed in assassinating him.
I 100% don't believe Iran would be behind an assassination of Trump at this moment. When you're about to win the war and you're about to cause the United States to run out of oil, that's not the time where you kill their president. You're about to win. They have no reason to kill Trump. He's going to come begging on his hands and knees in 2 months to get Iran to open the Straits of Hormuz. So if there is an assassination of Trump, yeah, it's not Iran behind it.
Yeah, quote, I've left instructions, if anything happens to me, to just literally bomb them at levels they've never seen before. I've been number one for a long time, and it's been the way of life.
With what weapons? We used up nearly half of our Tomahawk missiles during the first months and a half of war. We could the most we could do is if we use every single one of our weapons is hit them about as hard as we did during the first month and a half.
So he seems genuinely concerned they may assassinate him. Obviously, there is a lot of anger. A lot of people want vengeance. You've seen the people on the streets, millions of people on the streets. A lot of them were calling for revenge and had the red flag as well at these protests. Do you think the Iranians are considering it? There's a genuine threat to the president's life?
Well, because the Iranians before have talked about assassinating Trump, they put out some promo videos 6-7 years ago. And because they've said in the last year since Midnight Hammer that if they ever really are on the verge of falling, that they have asymmetrical ways to strike overseas, and they obviously do have some operatives in Europe and the United States.
Assassinating leaders is what a desperate nation that has no other recourse does. Iran has held the Strait of Hormuz closed 4.5 months. Another month and a half and they win, basically. The United States runs out of oil within that period, and Trump comes begging for a deal completely on Iran's terms. So they're on the verge of winning. They have no reason to kill Trump now.
Gage, that said, they've officially said that they don't want to kill Trump. Just a few months before Israel struck them and drug us into it, saying, no, those reports aren't true. We don't want to kill you. We want to de-escalate this. So I do think they discuss it. I mean, any of these big governments and systems talk about in a war killing the other leaders. I'm sure Putin's talked about killing Zelensky. Zelensky's obviously been trying to kill Putin and openly talking about it. So we know that stuff goes on. So if Trump did...
Yeah, Zelensky has been trying to kill Putin, but Putin hasn't been trying to kill Zelensky. If Putin wanted Zelensky dead, he would have been dead years ago.
Get killed, God forbid. We'd have to actually look at Iran as a suspect. But that said... I've been on this for a long time, and I remember the day after Trump got shot in Butler, Pennsylvania, way back in 2024, I said, watch, I bet they try to spin this and say it's Iran. People said, that's crazy. 3 days later, CNN, whoa, senior officials think Iran might be involved in this and other attacks. Then they busted 2 different guys, one out of Pakistan, one out of, I think, Saudi Arabia, who thought they were being paid by a group to come to the U.S. and kill Trump, 2 separate plots. And then it later turned out it wasn't really Iran, and it was some multinational intelligence group. So they also go out and hire patsies and idiots that think they're working for one state and they're working for somebody else. And I said, Trump came out and said, if I'm ever killed, the same thing he just said today, I want Iran totally obliterated. I've left instructions. So he said that before, and back during Midnight Hammer, and even previous to that. It was the 3rd time.
Trump still watches Fox News 3 hours a day. He still is mostly captured by mainstream propaganda. It's sad.
If they can do it. Well, Israel brags they can kill everybody. Israel says we need to use the same energy we did with Hamas with exploding pagers in America against their opposition. That's what the head of the ADL said.
Then again, the reason he became president is he's in touch with what people think, and good way to have a pulse of what people think is watch the news that the only news program that a lot of Americans still watch, Fox News.
Months ago. So we also have top Israelis saying we need a new 9/11 to get America back on board with our wars. Well, the new 9/11 would be President Trump being assassinated, and then Iran being blamed, and that would probably get the American people behind a total bombardment, nukes, maybe even a ground invasion, which is totally insane. And so we have to look at Israel standing to gain from a Trump assassination, especially because he set the table and opened the door that if I'm killed, it's Iran, and I want them totally destroyed, which is Israel's ultimate goal. So he's teed himself up like a golf ball on a tee, or a gun that's had the bullet loaded into the chamber and cocked it for desperate Likudniks, for people like Netanyahu, who is convicted, who will go to jail if this war ever ends. He even admits that, wanting this Greater Israel Project to continue on out of desperation to kill Trump or fund some group to kill Trump, and then that way they'll have a more pliant, they think, vice president or somebody, though I don't think they actually think Vance would do that, who would go along with that. So I think that's really in the cards, and I think Trump's made a big mistake saying if I get killed, they say it's Iran, just know it's Iran. Plus, I don't know if Trump's really studied the Constitution.
It's a mistake for Trump to have said that. Yes, he is teeing himself up for the harder line elements of Israel to take a shot at him.
When he's found incapacitated, they don't take previous orders for hypothetical things and carry it out. They would swear in the vice president, and then he would make that decision whether to follow through on the dead president's posthumous order that's been issued from the grave. So I think Trump's really set himself up to be assassinated by the Israel lobby, by the Likudniks with this. But you can't ever say that it shouldn't be investigated if he is killed, because Iran has set themselves up with statements of behavior where indeed it could actually be them. So it's really an open question right now, but shows how much this has escalated 2 days ago, hitting their nuclear reactor, the Bashir reactor, and Trump saying, oh, well, we can keep it straight open, we can stop their mine-laying vessels. It's not the mines that'll do that, it's the artillery and missiles, which the Pentagon says they'll be able to keep it closed indefinitely. A month ago, Trump admitted that and said they can keep it closed indefinitely, so we got to end this war. He said yesterday, no more negotiations, end of ceasefire. Today, he said back to negotiations. So I've never seen so much gyrating, flip-flopping, and uncertainty created. And I've been a fan of Trump and wanting him to succeed, but I must call balls and strikes. And Trump knows he has no off-ramp because the Israel lobby will turn against him. He also knows Iran's got most of the cards being belligerent, wanting all our bases out, at least $300 billion, and the rest of it.
Yeah, he's caught between a rock and a hard place. Hard place is Iran, it's control of the Strait of Hormuz. And the rock is Israelis' influence on U.S. politics, neocons, mainstream media would all turn on him if he surrenders to Iran.
They've never done a deal. They've had outlines. So when Trump says they break deals, that's not true. They've always say there is no deal. And then when they don't follow the imaginary deal, he says they're lying. I'm not an apologist for the mullahs. I'm just calling balls and strikes. So Trump is really painting himself into a corner here. And I just hope the Israel lobby doesn't say, well, he set himself up perfectly here. Let's go ahead and just kill him with a truck bomb or a missile or a shooter and say it's an Iranian, and then get the full war we've always wanted. So it's a pretty dangerous situation.
I don't think it would work anyway. Leftists are against this Iran war, of course. But a lot of the right wing, too, is against this Iran war. And even if Trump gets killed, people will view it as he bombed Iran's supreme leader, and that came back to bite him. And why should Americans die for that mistake? Yeah, there wouldn't be a type of 9/11 moment where Americans come together. No. Trump is hated by too many Americans already. There would be half of America would be celebrating. Well, more like less than half of America would be celebrating. And the other half, there's a lot of Trump supporters that weren't a fan of the Iran war.
Shit. Okay, so you're saying Israeli intelligence will be leaking that story in order to create a narrative that you think Trump fell for that narrative based on his comments? And him making comments like this is essentially allowing the Israelis, or elements within Israel, to consider the assassination of the American president as a way to drag the U.S. back into a war with Iran, because all fingers would point towards Iran.
Yes, and I said over a year ago, Midnight Hammer, I said, this is designed to get us into a full war. We didn't like I had a crystal ball. The Israel firsters were saying we want to get into a full war. They were calling for it then. And then Trump just did the limited strike, which I thought, was the lesser of evils. And then I said then, he'd already made these statements. I said, if they start hyping that Iran's going to kill Trump, Iran better be clear and say that's not us because they're being set up. And now Trump has yet again put his head in the noose, climbed up on the gallows with this, because we have all these former Israeli intelligence bosses and defense experts all over the news saying we sure need to do 9/11 to get America back to doing what we tell them. And so, yeah, I mean, I think that is a very serious problem, and I don't think Trump has thought that through. And it's too much fun for him to say, well, I guess the mullahs won't be here long, but I won't be here long either. They want to kill me, and then he has literally set up the perfect atmosphere and climate and situation that entices Israel to kill him as a pretext to go to full war and then commit the United States of America to the larger Israel project.
How do you, as you said, Trump can't make orders when he's incapacitated, if he is killed.
And even if they do kill Trump and try galvanize support like happened in 9/11, you can't get enough boots on the ground in Middle East to invade Iran for at least like 10 months. If you want to get 300,000, which is the minimum to take the coastline and open the Strait of Hormuz, it'd take 10 months if you started now. And the world will run out of oil well before that. So I don't see how even taking out Trump would help.
Those orders become void. So then J.D. Vance takes the presidency. What do you think J.D. Vance would do?
Well, I know
we're going down a pretty, just to be clear, this is a pretty dark hypothetical, but I'm trying to go through this is something that Trump talked about 2 days in a row, and now Axios and CNN are reporting about it. So it's not something.
Sure, exactly. I understand you're always, you're very daring with your guests and cutting edge, but you're also not incendiary or inciting or trying to be, hysterical. You're not. You're covering all the facts here, the pieces we have. The president talking about I won't be here long, and if I do, obliterate these people. And then you've got Israel saying, boy, we sure need to do 9/11 to get America back on board. That means something that pisses Americans off and is painful for us and that we take as a national outrage. But when Israel advised Trump to kill the mullah, they told him that'll make him fold. All the experts said it would make him fight harder. It made the mullahs way more popular. So Israel knows if Trump gets killed, they can pin it on Iran. These are stupid statements the Iranians made during the Ayatollah's funeral, death to America, kill Trump. And who knows, Iran might actually be crazy and do it. I mean, they're suspects too if he died.
No. Not at this moment. Not when Iran is on the verge of victory, of bringing Trump to his knees. You don't kill your enemy that you're about to that you've beaten, and they're about to humiliate themselves and surrender to them. They're about to humiliate themselves and surrender to you. That is not the enemy you kill them and spare them the humiliation. No, you don't show mercy on the enemy that way.
I just have to say, Israel, the Likudniks, I don't single out Israel, the Benjamin Netanyahu, Ben Gvir axis of lunatics, they are the ones that are the prime suspects if Trump gets killed. And because they stand to gain from it the most. Not the mullahs. I mean, mullahs, seriously. You think killing Trump is going to make America stop coming after you? You use your head. But the Iranians have said...
No, it wouldn't make America stop coming after Iran. And it wouldn't make... Yeah, exactly. It wouldn't accomplish anything. And they already have a winning card in the Strait of Hormuz. Why bother doing that?
Since Midnight Hammer a whole bunch of times, I think they said it again 2 weeks ago, we're not going to kill Trump. We're going to respond proportionately to any attacks against us. Now, once their Bashir reactor and all that got blown up, they said, well, now we're going to hit you with double the missiles for every target you hit. So they are finally ratcheting up their rhetoric. But before...
Ben Gvir and Bibi wouldn't off Trump. They would lose a very valuable asset. Possibly, yes. Yeah, and you have people in Israel saying stuff like we need to do 9/11. They aren't necessarily talking about killing Trump. And I don't think that worked just because Trump is so unpopular with a huge part of America. So people that hate Trump would be celebrating Iran. You know what they did with Charlie Kirk. So it wouldn't be a unifying moment like 9/11 was. That's why I doubt it. And yes, right now Trump seems doing mostly what Israel wants. He also is desperately trying to get out of this war, but he can't.
For this, since Midnight Hammer on 13 months, it's always been we're going to proportionally, respond, and we're going to respond, to targets in the region.
We're talking about Israel benefiting, though. They do get J.D. Vance as president, and that's someone that's not a big fan of Netanyahu.
Well, that's what I've said is the only thing keeping Trump alive from that perspective. If you think Israel would really do that, which I think if they thought they could get away with it, they would. They were heavily fingerprinted in a coalition killing Kennedy in '63 because he was about to strip their uranium that they'd illegally gotten from us, and that's a fact. But yes, Vance behind the scenes did not want these strikes, but he went along with it once it happened. He's been overall pro-Israel and even connected to the Likudniks at a certain level. But I think Israel would calculate that a dead Trump would get enough anger going politically that it would energize the passing of the Defense Authorization Act, Section 224, that puts Israel merging into our military and intelligence. And I think that they would calculate the pressure put on Vance to go full war, if it could be proven that Iran did it, would be substantive enough to actually go ahead and roll the dice. And that's what Israel does, even if they don't have a really good chance of succeeding at something. If it's the only move they've got, if Israel's going to give up or roll the dice recklessly, they'll roll the dice.
Besides, there's also failed assassinations attempts, like Butler. Just because they try doesn't mean they will succeed.
And you can say, well, that's why they're so successful, is because they're so bold. It's like the SAS, British Special Forces slogan is "Fortune favors the bold," and so the word chutzpah comes from there for a reason. And I just am exposing this so that there's enough sunshine on this serious probability or possibility. Yeah. And you should ask Larry Johnson and others that I respect what they think, and I think they're going to agree with me.
Yeah, well, Larry, I'm sure would. You mentioned, before we go with the latest developments in Iran, you mentioned Section 224, which not many people are talking about. I was speaking to Anna Kasparian about it yesterday.
It's amazing. You have a bill that's trying to merge U.S. and Israeli military, and you have complete silence on the part of not only mainstream media. Asmongold, for example, hasn't covered it. You'd think that merging the U.S. and Israeli military would be something important enough to cover, given all the implications.
Today, man, it seems like this is going to pass. That's freaking wild. That is just wild. This is just for the audience. This is, you can explain it better than I, but essentially merges the U.S. military and the IDF. And also Senator Cotton's trying to merge the CIA and Mossad and make it irreversible. But that is so freaking wild.
Yeah, when this first came out 5 weeks ago, first they said it's not true. Well, you can go read 224 in the Defense Authorization Act 2027. That's now passed out all the committees and is in the full House, about to go to the full Senate. And then you have the full new intelligence funding bill that doesn't just merge Mossad with the CIA. It's all U.S. intelligence, live time, synchronicity. They use words like live time, synchronicity. They marriage, combine. Live time is used. There's a whole bunch of terms. And it says from research and development down to weapons deployment, avionics, guidance, intelligence, all of it in live time, fusion, integration, marriage. And then you have Netanyahu, who sent letters to Congress, to the committee chairman, saying, thank you for putting the section I wrote. This is a public letter in there. So Netanyahu wrote this. Similar language is in the intelligence bill funding.
Netanyahu literally writing American laws for us. Isn't that great? Isn't he kind, doing the work of all our politicians for them?
Tens of billions of dollars. And it's intelligence and it's live time everything. And it says from DARPA at the universities right down to the weapons manufacturing. And remember Netanyahu said, and he said this for months before this bill came out, he said, we're going to just do co-weapons deals with the Americans, so we won't need money from Congress anymore. And he talked about some of their missile systems. Now, this says basically anything that they work on with us.
Even if this bill does pass, there's going to be big pushback from a lot of parts of the military-industrial complex. So it's not guaranteed everything will happen, but it's not a good bill to pass anyway.
And they're going to be brought into it. If they create one little part of a weapon system, they get access to everything, and then they get co-ownership of our military-industrial complex. And Israel's famous for selling our secrets to the Chinese, communists, and others. So it is sheer madness. But notice, right when that passed committee 3 weeks ago, and then it's now gone out of another committee in the full House, the Defense Intelligence Agency and several other high-level agencies at the Pentagon came out and said Israel is now the highest level espionage national security threat. And it said in the report they're human intelligence, sex operatives, signal spying, legislation, pressuring Congress. They're trying to take over. And it described them as being unhinged in the report in the level of spying that they've seen, as Kiriakou talks about with you. We never saw anything like it back then. Every time they can, they'd try to plant bugs. They'd have an operative there going to college openly. They'd cut the dog's tail off, shit all over the floor. I mean, it's just wild what they do.
So you're saying a lot of interesting things, then suddenly in there's like cut the dog's tail off and shit all over the floor. I'm like, what?
and so compared to the way they were, they're saying they're now unhinged compared to that. I mean, look at Ben-Gvir goes into flotilla people trying to bring rice into Gaza and starts slapping and beating women on TV. A giant fat dude, all wild-eyed, smiling, slapping people. I mean, imagine what they do behind the scenes. They admitted they raped a bunch of men, and then the media's like, good, rape them more. And I'm not trying to demonize Israel, but they've gone wild-eyed, mad dog. It's going to end up causing a new war. It's a nuclear war, probably. It's going to end up destroying Israel. And then Israel's got nukes. They're going to just Samson option everybody. Have said they would. They're not talking about nuclear blackmail to hit Iran if we don't stay in the war like they did in 67. This has been declassified. It's not just Pollard talking about it. That they called up Henry Kissinger and said, you see that fighter bomber out there? They got nukes on them. We're nuking Egypt right now if you don't get on board with us. So this goes on and on and on. But Israel has just wound itself up into a megalomaniac.
You wonder what Onion News is doing with the InfoWars right now? That is such a travesty. You know that truth is supposed to be the defense against defamation, but not in Alex Jones case. He never got a chance to... Don't think that just because he lost the defamation case that he was necessarily wrong about the Sandy Hook shooting, because there was no trial, no jury determined he was guilty. Just one corrupt judge said, fuck you, pay $1 billion. Yep, that's the end of it. He is right about one thing. Mossad is expanding their network everywhere. I mean, in every country. Well, they are still one small country. So I think they're mostly working on the United States. I haven't heard much about Israel having successes in China, for example, given how tight-knit the Communist Party there is.
Tasmanian devil situation and is the number one danger to world peace on the planet right now. And no one disagrees. Gallup polls agree they're the most unpopular. Military leaders around the world say Israel's the biggest danger right now. And I've never had a hard-on for Israel. I don't hate them. They've had,
It's so funny from my perspective is because the world must seem like it's going mad from the perspective of the average person that just watches the media. So many things that don't make any sense. You should not have one foot in the conspiracy side of things, the Alex Jones side of things. The world must be utterly mad.
Regimes that I would call reasonable. I like the Abraham Accords. I like what Trump did in the first administration. I want Israel to be successful. I want them to work with their Arab neighbors. But this new Israel with this Netanyahu whose back's against the wall is like Hitler in his bunker or something. And these people are dangerous. And what would have Hitler done in his bunker in 1945 if he had a bunch of intercontinental ballistic missiles and hydrogen bomb warheads? Well, we know what he would have done. And so we have a cornered authoritarian with a bunch of crazy people who are not self-aware.
And a lot of nukes.
On power trips in a feedback loop, hyping each other up about existential danger to themselves, and they are the danger. Israel's leadership is Israel's number one threat. And by the way, all the former Mossad chiefs say that. Most of their former top generals. I mean, I had Michael Savage, who's hard to get on the show, but he called me up like 9 months ago. He goes, I want to come on. I said, okay. He goes, listen, I talked to high-level top generals, former head of their military, who's now been on TV, and they say the number one threat is Netanyahu to Israel. These are not anti-Israel people. These are Zionists that believe in an Israeli state, but not in wild-eyed, foaming at the mouth.
There is the K-Fan community in China. Ping has been paranoid about that community because of Mossad. Yeah, I can understand. He doesn't want Israel to have the same influence over China as it does over the United States. Yep.
I mean, now they're like, yeah, we're taking Lebanon. Yeah, we're taking part of Syria. Yeah, we're expanding wider Israel. Yeah, we're carpet bombing Christian areas. And so they've even got a lot of hardcore Christian conservatives that have been pro-Israel, like Stephen Crowder's co-host, turning against them. Because people always say, like, oh, you're either with the Muslims or you're with Israel. And it's like, no, we're not for radical expansionist Islam. We're also not for psychotic expansionist Israel. And
yeah, expansionist, either one is bad.
Sorry, Pakistan's got nukes, but these other countries don't. Israel does. And so I've read and heard from sources that Trump's been trying to talk to some of the opposition over in Israel. But I think he needs to cut. Remember, there's some good news. Netanyahu about 8-9 days ago said, I'm coming to D.C. to meet with Trump next week. And then notice Trump came out on Truth Social and said, just remember who the boss is. And then I was told Trump snubbed him. Because he normally shows up and addresses Congress and walks around like he's the second coming. And so it's good to have Trump saying, hey, you'd be in jail without me. Everybody hates you now because of you. You gave me bad advice. He even told with him.
Yeah, it is good to have him say that, but you have to wonder how much of that is just Netanyahu and Trump planning that, just because Trump being seen as Netanyahu's bitch is very bad for him domestically. And so how close they really are, I don't know.
Him in the audience a month ago, Mark Levin, like, well, I do like you, Mark, even though you gave me bad advice. And God, I shouldn't like you. God, I need to stop listening to you. So I mean, Trump knows that, but he still also knows that Iran's asking for $300 to $500 billion, and for us to leave the Middle East, he's not going to do that. So the Iranians are being a little...
He's not going to do that yet.
But a little bit too cute here because they do hold most of the cards. Still, you don't want to get a cornered Trump and a cornered Israel going too far. You want to give Trump an excuse, whatever it is, the minimum you've got to give, and that's more. So I would tell Iran, stop rolling the dice, or you're going to end up having Trump nuke your ass, or Trump getting killed, and then Israel's going to nuke your ass in response and say, it's okay, we did it for Trump. And I think that's what they'll do, actually. That's what will Vance do. I think Israel will nuke them within hours of Trump being killed and being pinned on Iran. And then we'll have to buy the story, oh, see, it was great. No, they killed him. Don't question it. Yes, we...
No, I think Pakistan would nuke Israel under that scenario if Israel nukes Iran. So, yeah, then you basically have thermonuclear war. Or no, I don't. I'm not that worried about it going to this extreme.
We hit 5 cities. Yes, we hit there.
Besides, Israel couldn't just hit nuke Iran right after Trump dies, because there's no proof that it's Iran right away after Trump dies. You have to have an investigation. If they just nuke Iran, it's they were doing it at a time where the reason for Trump's death was still undetermined.
Basis. Well, we had to do it, and I think that's a real scenario we should all be looking at right now: thermonuclear war after Trump's assassinated.
Holy shit! I want to just go back to when Netanyahu wanted to visit the U.S.
Not a likely one, as far as I'm concerned, but a possible one.
Trump snubbed him, but also went to Turkey, befriended Erdogan again, about to approve the F-35s. Smotrich and others. Smotrich is saying we should, Benazir Smotrich from Israel is saying that we should prepare for war with Turkey. So he's not saying Turkey's a threat. Erdogan's a threat. He's saying we should prepare for a war with Turkey, and other officials are saying similar things. But Trump seems to just dismiss those concerns. And by the looks of it, there's a report today that Turkey's selling their S-400s, their Russian air defense system, so they can get the F-35s. Is that an example of Trump snubbing Netanyahu again? This is action, not just rhetoric.
Yes, and that's real action, not rhetoric. I'm glad you read my mind because you're so well informed. That's exactly where I was going to go. He doesn't just have Vance out there skewering Netanyahu and Gvir and others who gave them bad intelligence on record. I mean, the last few weeks, Netanyahu bragged, yeah, I launched Midnight Hammer, so he had to. Yeah, I launched first, drag him in. Yeah, I'm in charge. Just rubbing Trump's face in it. And then Trump's been trying to be nice and not throw him under the bus. So Trump's like, fine, I'll throw you under the bus. And then he goes over there with Erdogan, who has done whatever the U.S. wants. Ever since, World War II, at the end of World War II, Turkey's been our big ally. We had nukes there the whole time. So the Russians put nukes in Cuba, but our media doesn't explain that to people. That's historically declassified. And so Turkey is the biggest conventional military in Europe, very capable. And we started seeing surrogates, Gvir and others, say a few months ago, the next enemy is Turkey and Egypt. Even though, Erdogan has some rhetoric against Israel, but worked with Israel to overthrow Assad 2 years ago. And so Erdogan just
all this is true.
Kind of ignores it. But Israel is so jealous right now that Trump has all these business deals and weapons deals with Turkey, and Turkey's kind of stayed out of all this stuff and is getting stronger and stronger. And so Israel said, we're threatened by anybody successful around us. Well, next is Saudi Arabia. Next is Jordan. Next is the UAE. It doesn't seem to matter how much you kiss Israel's ass. They've always got to have an enemy to keep control of their population and keep their military-industrial complex in place. And so Israel's bit off more than it could chew.
Well, they have that greater Israel goal.
And so saying, yeah, we got to prepare for war with Turkey when there's nothing militarily, threats coming out of Turkey is again, megalomaniac behavior. And I don't sit there and go, oh, good, I get to bash Israel and get brownie points.
He is spitting facts.
With the anti-Israel crowd, which, no, I'm not for the Nazis, I'm not for the jihadis, and I'm not for the Israel firsters. And we somehow have to have a real peace deal that maybe Trump just ignores Netanyahu and tries to broker some deal that, just of the sane. And maybe Turkey could be involved, and Russia could be involved brokering it. But we've got NATO's crazy and admits our demographics are collapsing. We're in deepest debt, worse than even China. The EU's in the worst shape in the whole world of the industrialized. And they say, their ministers say, their military ministers and their economic ministers basically unanimously say, look this up, in the last 4.5 years, our new business model is a 20-year war with Russia. We believe they'll never go nuclear. They'll finally fall. We will then break Russia in 5 parts, and that will fix our long-term debt.
Meanwhile, there are officials in Moscow openly talking about nuking Europe and that some countries should cease to exist.
But in the meantime, we'll be a wartime economy. And Trump kind of bought into this recently. Well, I don't care about Americans' average economic problems. I care about the war. And then Trump's like, oh, we're making $1 trillion a year off weapons sales. So he's kind of schizophrenic in that our best part of the economy is the $1 trillion of weapons people buy, which siphons off the rest of the economy and causes energy prices to be higher than inflation with a straight close, Trump. So we're losing the world trillions off that. So it's like you cut off a leg and then you put a blood transfusion in. When you're losing more blood out of the leg than the blood transfusion, we need a tourniquet around the leg, which means ending these wars. Then you get the blood transfusion. So we're at the end of a cycle. The fourth turning's here. Elon Musk told the World Government Summit this just a few years ago. He said at the end of a cycle, the empires always have wars to maintain control of their domestic groups and use the war as a cover, for the new system coming in. You can't do that now with 10 billion people and with 50,000 nuclear weapons and with biological weapons and with faster than light communication or fast as light communication. He said we have to grow out of this, we have to innovate out of this, and we have to have an end of this old cycle or we're dead.
It's not possible to grow out of this. If it was possible to grow out of this, they wouldn't be going after Iran and Russia.
And that's what all the real brains knows. And so NATO is following the old model of conquest, and Europe, let's attack. Oh, when Europe gets in trouble, let's attack the Russians. Napoleon, Hitler, over and over again. And it's the same thing Israel. Oh, God, we're unpopular. Oh, God, we're having issues. Well, let's just stay in a war. Our people won't question when there's missiles raining down on them. Our people won't put Netanyahu in jail when he's convicted, when he's a wartime prime minister. And so that's all this is them using crises to kick the can down the road. Well, we need to offer Netanyahu. One thing Trump said is true. If we can make a deal with the Israeli Knesset and their Supreme Court, let Netanyahu move to Miami with his son, take his money, and like Napoleon being put on an island, let him go and give him that deal.
Well, what if Ben-Gvir takes over? Isn't he just Netanyahu but worse?
I think Netanyahu might go and de-escalate this, but they're like, nope, you're going to jail. We're going to get you, and that's not smart. You always put the warlord when he's still in charge of the warlord, but is losing. You come to him and say, hey, you can take so many of your troops and take so many of your people, and you can go here, and you even let them go, and you let them go to that place. Okay, and then you put a garrison of troops around it, make sure they stay there. And we just need Netanyahu. Netanyahu, you're really from the United States, and your family's from Poland. You need to go to New York or Miami. You need to go right now.
Yeah, if Netanyahu could live out the rest of his life peacefully, not in jail, that'd be a big win for him. And not only because of the corruption charges, but because his role in funding Hamas before October 7th, his role in funding ISIS, and ISIS's genocide of Christians in Syria, and a whole bunch of other war crimes committed against Palestinians and Lebanese people. He gets away with having overseen all that, live out his life peacefully. That would be a big win for him.
Like a Dr. Seuss book. I don't care how you go, just go. And we also need to go to NATO and say, if Trump's all obsessed with them paying their fair share at 5% of GDP and buying our weapons because he sees it as the economy. Okay, great, Trump. The point is, you got to go to Ursula von der Leyen, the unelected EU dictatorship commission, and take the car keys away from these people. Because the Russians, by attrition, have overall won, but 4 years, 5 years in, they're sick of it. And they're saying, we're going to start flattening cities, and we are going to start hitting your bases that are making weapons, starting with Poland.
Yep, I've been warning about that for over a month now. We're getting to the point where Russia is very, very, very close to just striking an EU member state. Where the drone production facilities in EU member states.
And they have told them what they're going to do, and I've talked to Russian insiders. They're getting ready to do it. And then they think NATO is going to blink. So they thought Russia was going to blink, and they stopped blinking. Now they think NATO's going to blink. They may not. So we're 2 minutes away from mid.
I could tell you that, let's say, for example, the UK, where they're terribly unhappy by the endless migration. The idea if UK government, okay, now sign up for military, go off to die, yeah, and you can have the Muslim migrants will replace you even faster that way. No, that won't be popular. Not at all in UK or elsewhere in Europe. The threat that a lot of men in Europe want to fight is not abroad.
Night on the International Atomic Energy Scientists Group of Nuclear War. All the RAND Corporation, all the actuarialists, all the war gamers say, hands down, we're in a worse position than the Cuban Missile Crisis, when we had Nike missiles with nukes on them and Turkey aimed at the Russians, so they put their intermediate missiles in Cuba. We are way worse position than that right now, and the public is sleepwalking. Yeah, there's a big minority that watches your show, my show, cares about this stuff, but the general public, I think it's a joke. They think Russia is like Mars. They think Israel is, like China or, Pluto. They think it's all 1 trillion miles away. It's not. Russian submarines are 3 to 5 minutes away from vaporizing all of our cities. ICBMs are 25 minutes away, okay? And Trump goes, well, we got submarines to nuke you too. Look, I just put a submarine off your coast. And the Russians go, big bad. They go, yeah, you got 45 of them. We know that. And I remember when I first saw Trump go, I put a sub off. That's his, he had mentioned much about the military. I put a nuclear sub with 30-something nukes on it. Each one carries dozens of nukes. And the Russians go, yeah, we know, we track those. You got 30-something off our coast. And Trump's like, how'd they know that? I mean, Trump doesn't even understand the nuclear deterrent triad, okay? So when you hear him, It's like a
Yeah, that is the sad part about Trump is he knows some subjects decently well that are important to him, but he didn't understand Iran at all, for one, when he lost his Iran war. He probably doesn't understand the whole nuclear scenario very well. The fact that there are credible reports that he was asking for the nuke codes to take out Iran is proof of that. Oh, my God.
5-year-old playing soldier. And he's good at business and good at negotiations, but he has real blind spots. Like, he thought all the military were John Wayne right-wingers. He's given speeches, and he thought they were all loyal. He didn't know that they're the most brainwashed globalists on average at the top, when they were all betraying him and stabbing him in the back. Now he does the loyalty thing and finds out who they are and has people check their background and found a bunch of right-wingers that'll follow his orders. But then a lot of them are just Christian Zionists that think the end of the world's here and they're about to usher in the end of the world. So we replaced a bunch of crazy globalists, but at least they didn't want nuclear war, with a bunch of Christian Zionists that are getting ready to think they're going to make Jesus come back when they fire their nuclear missiles at the mullah. Meanwhile, the mullah thinks they're bringing back the 12th Mahdi, and they think it's the end of the world. And then meanwhile, a bunch of the Jews think the third temple's about to happen. They're going to force the Messiah to come back. I mean,
it's crazy that he's not entirely wrong. There is a lot of religious fanaticism, both on the Israeli side and the U.S. side, and it's sad. Like our current Secretary of War has given sermons at the Pentagon, actual sermon. Oh my God.
But I see Netanyahu on TV with these rabbis. They go, "You must make the Messiah come back." He goes, "We're working on it. We're working on it." The Iranians, "The Messiah's coming." The Christian Zionists, "The Messiah, nuclear Messiah. If we just nuke things, we make Jesus come." And I'm like, all you people are fucking crazy. You need to be in rubber rooms. I believe in God. I believe in all that, but you don't tell God what to do. God might just let us all blow ourselves up and say, "See how you like that?" Hey, God, launch nuclear weapons.
God is probably sick of us at this point.
Get on down here. Beam me up. Oh, hold on. Launch nuclear weapons. In Star Trek, how do you get beamed up to the Enterprise? Launch nuclear weapons, Scotty. I need to be beamed up. Okay, you launch nuclear war. Now I can be beamed up in the Rapture.
So I'm guessing you're not too optimistic that Trump will be able to walk away from Iran?
Well, it'll be a major defeat.
Yeah, it'll be a major defeat, and it'll happen in August. Oil shortage. You have Republicans right around with the midterms coming. They're going to absolutely panic and demand Trump get the Strait of Hormuz open. You can have world leaders around the world panicking, demanding Trump get the Strait open. And under all that pressure, Trump will finally just have to cave and this time truly give in to all of Iran's demands. And that is when the Strait will reopen under Iranian control. Sanctions will be lifted so ships can pay the toll. And that is how Hormuz traffic returns to normal. But we are not near that, not until you start having oil shortages.
Feet for our name and everything. If he was to say, "Okay, we're pulling out of the Middle East," the government would assassinate Trump for that. Okay, Trump would die of a heart attack 5 minutes after he gave the order.
Today maybe, not when there's panic around the world and actual oil shortage. Like complete economic collapse as a way of focusing people, and the pressure on Trump. Right now, it doesn't exist, but once the oil shortage started, the pressure on Trump to basically cave into Iran will be stronger than everything on the other side. All the AIPAC and Israeli lobby, all that won't matter. Not in the face of an oil shortage.
They give him cyanide or something. He's not allowed to pull our military out. They're not our own hardliners, like hardliners telling Putin, "You better finish this. You better go full out or you're gone." So they got Putin walking the plank right now, the hardliners over there. We've got our hardliners that are back in the shadows that would never let our military leave the Middle East because that's blocking China and everybody, and we're blowing up their Belt and Road railways and all that. It's not just about Israel. Israel's the one pushing it and had the lobby that got it done, but there's other interests, that are there. And so, but the short-term damage to our interests outweigh blowing up their Belt and Road and IMEC systems, coming in out of Russia and China into Iran. So that's why Trump's original calculus not to do that was the best in my view. But Trump cannot do the deal Iran's asking. And so they're both being picked
at the moment.
Headed. And so we're just going to have Iran devastated economically. We'll be hurt. The fertilizer not going to Africa. You're going to have mass famine, mass migrant floods. If you think the migrant floods are the fertilizer not going to Africa, you're going to have mass famine, mass migrant floods. If you think the migrant floods are bad now, by next winter it'll make that look like a cakewalk.
Well, the second half of next winter is actually, yes, that's when I do expect the food crisis to start hitting. Get in full swing around next spring, was when food prices will start hitting their peaks.
I said that 6 months ago. I said this happens now. The UN says, it's already happening. So they've done big studies, as you know, but it's the same all over the world. When half of the paycheck of someone is spent on energy and food, you get crime and civil unrest. 60% you get serious revolution and accelerated collapse. You go up above 65, 70%, you get anarchy and collapse and war, and then migrant floods. And so we're already upwards in many third world countries at 60%. And so it's already all unraveling right now.
And you're reaching a critical point in Europe where attitudes are turning against migrants in a huge way. And you have a flood of migrants coming in next year. That's only going to accelerate. And that's not going to end well.
And so this is a time bomb situation. 1/3 of the fertilizer, right at 1/3 of the oil and gas, a whole bunch of special things like helium and everything else that's needed for chip making. And again, Trump's like, well, it's okay. We've got our own fertilizer. Yeah, but now there's a report half the farmers aren't ordering fertilizer and are just out this year in the U.S. because the price went up. Oh, you're right, Trump. They can get fertilizer. It just costs 30, 40, 50% more, which is their market.
Yeah, we're never truly going to run out of anything like fertilizer. The prices goes up until demand is destroyed. That's the way it works with oil, too. Oil prices will spike up until demand is destroyed. The only time you actually have shortages is when you have price controls, and then you have shortages.
Margin of profit, so they're out. So this is a amplification effect. And now 133 days into this, there's no economist that doubts that studies geopolitical, larger economic models that 6 months of the strait closed, global recession.
Those farmers that can buy the fertilizer and can get crops, they're going to reap the rewards of higher prices next year.
A year of it closed, global depression. And that's why Trump's gotten more and more desperate to try to get the off-ramp. You've heard him say, they got the strait closed, we can't open it. They got
the one reason Trump signed the MOU, when it's obvious to everyone now he never intended to live up to anything on the U.S. side of the agreement. But so why did he sign the MOU? To get the Strait of Hormuz open. The sole reason. That's all he's focused on. And why did he start bombing the hell out of Iran? Because Iran hit ships in the Straits of Hormuz and was shutting down traffic on the Oman side.
Missiles and artillery. That was like a month ago. And he goes, so we've got to make a deal. And later, we can keep it open. He said, today and yesterday, it's no problem. We'll stop their little boats with mines. So he's grasping at straws right now, and he doesn't want to look like a fool and hurt American power. Well, that already
It's too late for that, Trump. Though I will admit, people like Asmongold aren't aware of the ramification of the Iran war yet. They still think United States won. But once the oil shortage hits and Trump is forced to capitulate to Iran, even the Asmongolds of the world will realize what a disaster this whole situation is.
Happened. I've heard neocons say, not taking down Iran is hitting the iceberg, that Titanic. No, Israel getting us into this war is steering the Titanic into the iceberg field, which they did because they wanted to break the Atlantic passing record. So they ordered it into that field. Okay, and then now we're in the iceberg field and we see the icebergs up ahead, and we need to turn around and go out of the field and forget winning the record. So, okay, it's embarrassing we don't win the record.
Yeah, the Titanic wasn't intentionally sunk. It might have been sent on a particular route because they wanted to break some record. But the reason the ship sunk is because people weren't paying attention at the helm and weren't looking out for icebergs.
When we get back in slow time, we have to turn around and lose a day and go around the ice field. We need to turn the ship around and leave the ice field and put our tail between our legs and declare we blew up all their stuff, and their ships are at the bottom and they can't hit Israel as well now. Just declare victory. The mullahs will declare victory. Turn around. Discretion's a better part of valor. Go out of the ice field so you don't sink. We haven't hit the iceberg yet, but going to full war, keeping the strait closed, this is hitting the iceberg. And when we're getting close to the iceberg, so we have to turn around. God, I wish I could brief Trump. He sees what someone want to say. We have to turn around. We have to get out of the field and then get back into clean ocean and get back to port. And then everybody gets off the boat and everybody's happy. Or we could be at the bottom of the Atlantic Ocean.
Before we move on, you said something in 1967. Israel called the U.S. president talking about a nuke and potentially nuking Egypt, threatening to nuke Egypt if the U.S. doesn't join. What's that about?
It all floods together. There was two wars, 64 and 67. Liberty was 67. I think it was 67 or 64. No, it was 64. No. It was 74. 74. See, I'm sorry. It all comes together. Because the false flag was Liberty in 67. It was in 74, excuse me, because Nixon was in.
Alex Jones knows so much history that he knows the real history, not the history that's in the history books. The history that's been declassified in CIA documents. but that declassified info in CIA documents is never put into history books. History books never updated from the nonsense the media originally aired.
Henry Kissinger gets a call by the Israeli prime minister during that war because Nixon was cutting off more weapon shipments to Israel in their war with Egypt and other neighbors. And so they said to them, they said, you need to give us more weapons and stop the air embargo, or point your satellite's eye in the sky at this airfield and look at that fighter bomber, and it had hydrogen bombs under the wings. We're getting ready to hit Cairo if you don't do that. And then Kissinger said, okay, we'll end the embargo, because he was the one that called for it. And Jonathan Pollard, you can pull this up right now. Jonathan Pollard talks about Israel using nuclear blackmail on Nixon. Or Jonathan Pollard talks about Israel using nuclear blackmail, 1974, because it all conflates together, sorry. It's just a short 2-minute clip, and he talks about it, but I'd already read about that in books and heard about that from guests. And Nixon, even in one of his books, mentions that, so did Kissinger, that Israel threatened to use nuclear weapons on, hell, I can pull it up myself right now. Israel threatened to, because now, I usually get my factoids just right. I'm not going from memory.
No, that's fine, because it reminds me of something that the, who was it in Obama's administration a few weeks ago, talking about how the Israelis said that they will go into war with Iran without the US if Obama doesn't join them. So that came out. He was doing an interview a few weeks ago.
Yeah, no, Obama and Hillary, who I don't like as people, but they told the truth on that because it came out at the time. Hillary said constantly they were calling, saying, we're going to war. You got to do it. Our planes are on the tarmac. They're about to launch. And then she'd say, well, go ahead. And then Obama, too, said they would call up and say, we're launching an attack. They're going to hit your bases. You've got to join us. Absolutely.
Yep.
So that's, I mean, Netanyahu said.
They've been doing that for decades.
What, like 2-3 weeks ago, he bragged in 2 speeches. He said, I was going to launch the attack, so Trump did Midnight Hammer, and we launched this attack, and basically we're in charge.
Do you think they would do something similar now as well to drag back Trump into this? Is there anything they could do that's similar to that?
Yeah, they could kill
Trump.
Trump.
Iran alone.
They could kill Trump.
That wouldn't drag Trump back into this. That doesn't answer his question, Alex.
That's a worst case scenario. Anything below that?
Well, we already had some cases a few months ago where drones hit different countries, and Iran said, that's not us. And the countries said, that
Azerbaijan, Turkey, Cyprus, Oman. There's a few of them.
Yeah, it was a bunch of them. And remember mystery drones that later wasn't the Russians hitting Eastern Europe? Remember the missiles that came in early in the Ukraine?
Thing is, Iran's been very forthright with when they set out their missiles and drones. They announced where they were targeting, what they were hitting. They often announce ahead of the time when they're targeting civilian infrastructure. And so when there's a missile that comes somewhere that they didn't announce, it's easier for people to believe that it wasn't Iran behind it.
War that hit Poland and killed some farmers.
Missile crisis, yeah.
And then Zelensky goes, nuke them, it's them. And then the Polish anti-missile systems blew them up, so the tail numbers didn't get damaged because they didn't fully detonate, and it was Ukrainian missiles. And of course, they could see the trajectory over the border. Ukraine was doing that. So yeah, they could do a fake false flag drone attack. They could say a nuke went off, in the Mediterranean or the Red Sea, or a smuggled nuke, and it blew windows out, of Tel Aviv. But we did the radioactive isotope. It's Iranian uranium. They could do a nuclear false flag, a nuclear burn.
Well, according to most Americans, all of Iran's nuclear material is buried under a mountain. So it would be hard to explain how it suddenly got into this bomb next to Israel.
Dirty bomb. Again, Israel's been saying, oh, God, we sure need to do 9/11. We sure need to be the victim. And so I'm looking for the Lavon affair on steroids is basically what I'm talking about.
You're keeping a close eye on everything because you mentioned the strike on the railway, because you said it very briefly. That's a very important thing.
Yep.
I'm glad you spotted it. One of the targets 2 days ago, it's a very bizarre target up north in Turkmenistan, which is a railway, an Iranian railway that's part of the Belt and Road Initiative, which seemed like a warning to the country or countries in the region. I didn't really understand the warning to not do business with China, or a warning that the US could strike Chinese infrastructure. I didn't get that one, but so I want to ask you about that, but also ask you about yesterday. I'm not sure if you've been keeping track of the attacks on Iran yesterday. So Iran said we're being attacked, and then they walked back those claims. Actually said it wasn't the US. So Iran's being bombed. Actually said it wasn't the US. No indications it was Israel. Then we had Israeli sources. Israeli media say it was Bahrain and Kuwait attacking Iran. Did you manage to cover this on your show? What do you know about it?
I saw that. I saw it reported the U.S. hit them, and then people said it wasn't the U.S., and they said it was Israel. Then they said the Arabs have joined it. I think that's been disproven. But from what I've seen in our news, the U.S. hit them, and I think, obviously, then it was probably joint strikes with Israel. I don't know if that's the case, but the first casualty of war is the truth. But, no, the Pentagon has said they've been striking, and they've been showing footage of it, and they blew up some of the side buildings of the reactor, not the main reactor at Bashir.
You were covering that. You were covering that yesterday. What was that about?
That's a pretty big deal. We think they hit where they thought they were holding the research uranium. So they hit a bunch of the side depot buildings and some of the machinery areas. The Iranians haven't been clear, but there's big fires and big explosions in and around the Bushehr reactor. I don't know the Iranians.
That's huge escalation.
They're spinning it. They just said, well, we had some damage to the main reactor, but it was just shrapnel. I don't know. That's what the Iranians said. The Pentagon admitted they hit sites near the reactor. They hit on Kurg Island, some infrastructure and a military base. Trump said they didn't hit the oil. I don't know. That's true. The Iranians haven't really, that I saw, responded and said what they hit. But I'm watching Fox News. It shows explosions at Kurg Island and explosions at, they said the U.S. hit them with 170 bombs. And then that railway that forks up to Russia and then...
Yeah, what's going on in Venezuela is interesting. The meeting with Israeli delegation. Also, the IDF sent over soldiers to help after the earthquakes, which is legitimate. It's a way to build build favor in Venezuela. But I gotta wonder what leadership in Venezuela was thinking, giving United States control over their oil sales. They're now in the same position as Iraq, where the oil gets sold from Iraq and the money goes to the U.S. Federal Reserve. And basically, the Secretary of the Treasury of the United States gets to decide if Iraq gets its money from its own oil. It's insane. Now, Venezuela has put themselves in the same situation.
To China, yeah. I mean, that is a big investment by the Chinese, mainly, and some by the Russians. I mean, we're talking about the billion.
But the strike on the rail infrastructure, the bridge, it's something that'll be easily repaired, probably quickly, and they really rush in a matter of days, so it's not that big a deal.
Millions of dollars total just for the railway, and hundreds of millions and then you had their main shipping terminal, the only deep water port they've got, obliterating that. They blew up the command and control center and a bunch of other things. So Trump told him, he said, I'll destroy your infrastructure for making money. And so, in fairness, he's been flip-flopping a lot in threats, but this is the first time other than they blew up the biggest bridge in Asia, or in Central Asia, famously right as it opened. It's kind of a demonstration, but didn't do a lot of that, though that was big, obviously. Now they are hitting infrastructure that is the lifeblood of the Iranians. They're now hitting their cardiovascular heart, and to get their attention. Because, Trump's all about business. He loves things. He's like, war's terrible. That destroys beautiful buildings. He's like, I hate this. I hate this Ukraine war. Gold churches. He's not, he cares about the people. Somebody's like, look at that architecture, those gold domes. So he's like, oil fields, refineries, no. Bridges, no, I don't want to have to blow those up. Big, juicy bridges. Because he loves real estate and buildings and stuff. And so he's like, he doesn't get a Hitler.
He also knows that if he blows up Iran's energy infrastructure, Iran will start targeting energy infrastructure across the Gulf, and then we're in something twice as bad as the Great Depression.
In his own writings, loved watching Warsaw burn, went to the front line with his telescope and big giant binoculars and watched it for days, and loved burning buildings. Trump doesn't like that. He likes big green golf courses and everything manicured, and the women all look perfect, and everybody's got facelifts, and everything's wonderful. He's always, it's wonderful, it's the best, it's great.
It's funny, that is true, yet at the same time, he orders McDonald's at the White House. How does that work?
You kind of get where he's got a screw loose in a way. It's good in a way, too, but it's a little extreme. So he's like, all right, we're going to start blowing up the goodies. But you heard him. He goes, yeah, we blew up part of Kurg Island, but not the oil, because I might take it. He's like, that's a lot of infrastructure. So, I mean, this guy is something else, man. Because he always had this gold, I want the gold, I want the money thing. But now, as he gets a little older at 80, it's like, me gold, me gold. I mean, he's like an evil leprechaun or something. I mean,
Alex Jones calling Donald Trump an evil leprechaun. Wasn't on my bingo card for today.
It's unbelievable. Don't make me blow up your bridges and your gold goodies, because I'm going to get him. It's like, you're in trouble now with me, matey. And like leprechaun, I'm going to have to hurt you. You made me blow up some of me gold. If you make me blow up me gold, I'm going to blow you up. If you make me blow up them gold domes, I'm going to pay. Just let me have the gold and I'll be on my way.
The last thing I want to ask you about is, Tucker, I wrote it down. I want to get your thoughts on it. He mentioned in an interview, I think, on the show about launching or supporting a third party. Do you think that could happen? Do you think it could make a difference in the next election? Someone like maybe
No. In the U.S. system, a third party never works. It's never worked in the past. And even if Tucker is more successful than any of the people that have tried before, it still won't work. So it would just take support away from Republicans and give Democrats victories, because Tucker Carlson, the watchers of Tucker Carlson are sane people, which means they're most likely Republican voters.
MTG, Joe Kent, Massey, Tucker, yourself.
I look at parliamentary systems where you have dozens of parties, and every time a good party comes, the other ones gang up and then outvote them. And so
You have to do what Trump did. Trump didn't start a third party. He basically took over the Republican Party, and he basically forced MAGA Republicans that aren't deep state aligned. And so the Republican Party is mostly free of the deep state, more or less. Well, I shouldn't say that, but compared to Democrats, it's relatively free of the deep state. That's what you need to do. You need to primary Republicans. Tucker, you want to change the way things are? Do exactly what Trump did. Run for president, win, and change what it means to be Republican. Do what Trump did. Third parties, that's never worked. But what Trump did work. So why don't you follow the winning strategy?
people vote the most for this party, but the others gang up and outvote them. So our system, I think, was a better permutation than the parliamentary system, but it still has problems. And usually a third party hurts Republicans, like we saw with Ross Perot, but it was still good ideas he put forward. And so there's not much difference in the party leadership. Look how horrible and feckless the Republican leadership is, blocking the good parts of Trump's agenda, the SAVE Act, and other things. That if you have good people like Tulsi Gabbard and Joe Kent and RFK Jr. that tried to work for the Republican Party and have been betrayed, and the party itself, not the people, not the voters, but the machinery is blocking them from coming in, then you have a responsibility to go start a third party made up of that liberal and conservative, but populist, real people, pro-prosperity, America first, anti-war.
But that means basically surrendering at least one election cycle to the deep state, because any party formed by Tucker is not going to win the first time around. You're never going to have enough support. So it'll be like Reform. Reform became also establishment because Farage has basically turned traitor. But it took time for him to grow big enough to replace conservatives and labor. It's going to take time for Reform to grow. And I don't know if we could survive the damage of another, let's say, Biden. Yeah, I don't want another Biden.
Or Dream Team. And then I think that Dream Team would seriously punish the Republicans, unfortunately, because the Democrats are such a cult. Then you get the Democrats, and they're so horrible that it's intellectually hard to do. But I say justice be done, though the heavens fall. And so if you've got a bunch of good candidates out educating the public, I'd have to pull back and say I'm going to have to support them regardless, because they have right on their side, and I'll have to have faith in God that through this process we educate the public, or maybe some of these candidates win.
No, just do what Trump did. When Trump ran for president, he ran on the Republican side despite disagreeing on huge, important points with the Republican Party. Like, he was against outsourcing. He was against all these trade agreements. He was against immigration in a way that Republicans at that time were not. And he forced his way into the Republican Party, got on a ticket, and won. And he changed the Republican Party through that. So that is the effective way. You don't create a third party. You change the existing parties, as far as I'm concerned.
Because you've got such good people talking about the third party, if the Republican Party continues on its trajectory of being the Likudnik, Israeli first, foreign occupational party, then I would support that. But I would, in the meantime, talk about getting control of the Republican Party, putting major pressure on them to distance themselves from the Israel first crowd and not let a foreign government run us, and try to save the Republican Party. And I think it's very reasonable to start exploring and examining other options, because we're almost out of options. So that's where I stand at this point.
Alex, always a pleasure to have you on, man. Thank you.
Thank you, Mario. People can find me because I'm censored so many places at AlexJonesLive.com, my Rumble feeds, my X feeds, and on X at Real Alex Jones, at Real Alex Jones. Thank you so much, and I really appreciate you. Thanks for the time.
Great interview, and glad to see Alex Jones still doing well, despite the legal bullshit they put him through, and yeah. And he's still as entertaining as ever. And I'm mostly good. I like covering him on this topic of Iran, because we're mostly in agreement on everything. When you just start going off about aliens and other stuff, then he loses me. But there's none of that this time, which is great. Anyway, this will be on YouTube. Like and subscribe. Can watch on Kick or Twitch, and I'll see you next video. Bye.